Hi guys, and welcome to an unboxing video for this new product here, which is the Feiyu-Tech Mini3D 3-axis gimbal for aircraft. So as anyone who's subscribed to my channel will know, I've had my hands on quite a lot of Feiyu-Tech gimbal products over the last couple of years, so I'm quite well versed on what to, certainly what to expect from the old ones, some of the good things, some of the bad things, and I've done quite a few review videos, so anyone who wants to see a bit of their previous work, then by all means dig through my channel, you'll see some stuff there. This particular video is just going to be the unboxing, so I'm going to take a look inside the box, we're going to take a look at the product, I'm going to do a bit of a size comparison against some of the other products that they've done and some other products like the DJI Zenmuse, so we can at least see where it stands in terms of size, especially being that this is being deemed as a mini gimbal. And we'll talk about some of the features that the manual has shown us, and then after that what I'll do is I will do a full review video where we've got some test footage. I'm going to put it onto an airframe, show you some of the things that you can do with it, some of the things that you can maybe do with it that differ from other gimbals, go through the plus points, through the minus points, and really take an objective look at it after that. So that's going to be kind of the longer video. This video is just really going to be that first look, and everyone knows what an unboxing video is all about anyway. So with that said, let's crack on, get into this box, and we'll go from there. Okay, so let's dig into this box and see what we have got. So we have a manual, we have a warranty card, we have box A, we have the product itself, and we have box B. So I'll move all of that out of the way. Okay, so first and foremost, let's take a look at the product. So as you can see here, very neat, all compact. You can see there's no wires, anything like that. Now this is a nice change that Feiyu-Tech have been introducing over the last year or so with their gimbals. The G3 Ultra handheld version and the Aero version all had quite a lot of wires. I can show you an example of that. So this is the handheld version. You can see all of the motor housing is all held together and with this sort of strung wire. No major problem with it, but it does sometimes snag, and that was a point of contention that caused a bit of a problem once on one flight that I had, where I missed out on some footage because the gimbal had actually managed to get itself caught on the wire, and it was just at an angle, which was a bit of a shame. So it's nice to see that Feiyu-Tech have translated their G4 version, which I can grab here. So this is the handheld version, and as you can see on the G4 handheld, they got rid of all the wires, and it's all encapsulated in the arms, which is nice. So they've done that, but they've put it into this mini version. Now, in terms of mini, one thing that immediately is obvious for a person who knows Feiyu-Tech products like I do, is that the motor size is much smaller. So if we take a look at the motor size there, side by side, you can see that the diameter of that motor, if I bring it up a bit closer to you, is significantly smaller. I would say not necessarily half size, but certainly a third of the size, which is very interesting because the size of motors that have been on these handhelds and on the G3 Ultra, the Aero version, so the old big brother of this, they've always been the same size motors, and one of the things that has always been a good thing with Feiyu-Tech gimbals is those big motors. The reason that those motors are quite useful, the size of those motors and the power of them is quite useful on these products, is because the whole purpose of a gimbal, for those of you who don't know how they work, the idea is that you have everything neatly balanced on kind of the right weight for that camera. The idea being that when the gimbal is turned off with no power, the camera should be in perfect balance. That means that when you turn the camera on and you start moving it around, all those motors are actually doing, they're not physically holding the camera weight up. All they're doing is they're readjusting the balance based on movement, and that's how they work, and that's how they make so smooth a movement basically. So when you have a camera with an ND filter or something like that, you can throw the balance out, and DJI Zenmuse gimbals are notorious for being very sensitive to that sort of thing. Feiyu-Tech products have always been good because those big motors are capable of not just having good balance, but they're capable of fighting against imbalance, which means that if you do put a large filter on or something like that, that it's not going to be screaming, it's not going to be glitching out. So it'll be very interesting to see how this copes in terms of higher wind and forces against it, which is again something that Feiyu-Tech products from the past have always been very good with. That I've very rarely seen my gimbals fully glitching out based on kind of wind force in front of them. And indeed on the handheld, I stuck the handheld version of the G4 out of the car at 70 miles an hour and it didn't glitch out then, which I can assure you a DJI Zenmuse gimbal would have done at half of that, if not more. So it'll be an interesting test when we do the full review and get the flight footage on how these smaller motors actually deal with it. Other than that though, let's just take a bit more of a detailed look at it. So you've got the motor themselves, all of the control boards, everything like that is housed within these plastic shells. So they're using plastic, sort of, it feels like quite a nice tough composite plastic there. Aluminium at the back here with Mini3D, but again plastic housing there, so it does feel quite lightweight. And again, I'm going to leave it until the full review where I do the full weight comparison on this versus the others. So looking at the top motor mount, you've got the top motor mount again in one of these plastic casings. We've got the GRP board here, and this is a power distribution board which obviously takes this cable output and sends it to these two ports here, one of which is a mini USB or micro USB, and this one here which is an 8-point port. I believe that's going to be for the radio controlled plugs, so I'll get them out of the box. They should be in the box, but overall I quite like the gold effect, either the blue or the gold, which Feiyu-Tech tend to do. I like that, and it looks like a good solid product. So anyway, let's now move on to box A and let's get inside there. Okay, so let's rip open box A and see what we've got inside. So we have got some anti-vibration spheres. We have got a clamp for holding the GoPro on. We have got your standard rail mounts. We have got the top mounting bracket. And we have got the wiring harness. So that is box A. And for the fun of it, box B, we have got a swanky looking USB, micro USB cable, which is nice quality, it has to be said. Nice thin wire, rubberized grip, better than you get with a lot of stuff. We have got the Feiyu-Tech UART USB device, so this is for updating your firmware. It means you can plug it in, obviously that's the dongle, and then you use the USB cable for it. And we also have this funky little wire, which I will talk about in a moment, because I know what that is for. Right, okay, so that's everything out of the various boxes, so let's just talk about a couple of things from it. Firstly, let's talk about the top bracket. You can see there's holes, holes and more holes. Now that is designed for basically mounting to pretty much anything you can think of that has a standard set of mounting holes. Most importantly is something like the Phantom 2. Everyone's going to ask that question. Yes, it does fit the Phantom 2. I've already double checked it, and indeed this is the bracket that I designed for my Immersion RC Zhugong V2 Pro, which uses the DJI Zenmuse gimbal, and hence it uses the Phantom 2 holes. And you can see if I line that up there, hopefully you can see there's a hole there, it's coming through there and there and there. So basically that is to say that it's definitely got the Phantom 2 mounting brackets, and indeed if we just quickly grab the manual, makes it fairly obvious because it's a picture of a Phantom 2. Interesting in regards to how realistic that is into the height of the Phantom. In the review I'm going to mount it to the bottom of a Phantom. Whether I fly with it, maybe not, but I'll certainly mount it to it, and we'll see just how much of landing legs get in the way of that. I suspect that those proportions aren't quite accurate, and it's probably a little bit lower than that. But anyway, so that's everything that you get with the bracket. That's not a power distribution board, it is literally just the mounting bracket, and obviously you mount your anti-vibration spheres to them. Let's crack open the wiring harness and talk a bit about the wiring. So in the wiring harness bag you get a female Molex for mounting to the actual power distribution of your quadcopter, so that's going to take the battery output as an auxiliary, and then you get a pico blade ended, there we go, connection here with a bunch of servo wires for your receiver, and then the power for that. Now, how do we know what all of these do? Well, we can use the manual, but likewise we can also flip the gimbal upside down, and hopefully if I can get the lighting and everything right, there we go, you can see we've got yaw, pitch, SW, which is going to be the mode switch, we've got ground, and then we've got ground, and we have got video, and we've got ground and VS. So basically VI it says for video. Now video, that's an interesting point, because for the first time there's a video output wire. Now that's something that's never been on a G3 Ultra gimbal before. We've never had a video output, and immediately it begs the question. It says, well, hang on, to get video out from your camera, what are you going to plug into? Where's it getting video from? It doesn't magically come through the cage. The way it works is by this little doodad here. So we've got a standard GoPro USB 10-pin port, so that's going to go into the side of your Hero. Nothing particularly rocket science about that. And then normally what you would do is you'd need to get that up to the power distribution board. Now what they've done with this, and it isn't particularly obvious when you get it out of the box, is in fact behind this bracket here, behind this bit of sort of furry rubbery stuff which is actually adhered on, there is below there a Pico blade connector. Now rather than ripping that immediately up, what I'll do is I'll just grab my G4, because this is how I knew it was there, because it's right there. It's on the G4, and this is the same clamp that they use for it. So basically all that does is when you plug that in, it takes the power output from your wiring harness. So you've got wiring harness is obviously going to go into this port up here, and it's going to take the power coming into the wiring harness, and it's going to take a 5-volt feed to your GoPro. And it's going to power your GoPro, and then it's going to take your video output from your GoPro, and it's going to send that back to this little servo connector here. So for people flying FPV, that means that you're going to be able to see the output of your GoPro nice and easily. And most importantly, I mean, it was possible with the old one, but it meant you had to have a separate cable go into the side of your GoPro, which could get snagged and everything. But all it means is there's just going to be one wire, GoPro to back of the cage, and that's it. And that's a nice little neat way of doing it, I think. You know, and it's nice to see that Feiyu-Tech have thought about that, because it is something that's kind of fundamental these days. You want to be able to see the output of your GoPro when you're doing FPV. No one wants to have two cameras if they don't have to. Yeah, this is going to give the option. Obviously, the other outputs in regards to modes, you can adjust the pitch, so you can tilt it down. You can actually adjust the heading in one of the modes, so you can tilt it left to right as well, which is quite nice. And there's quite a lot of motion there, so if you look, there's almost 360. Now how much of that translates to usable movement will depend on the software, the firmware, everything like that. So I'm going to test that out, and again, subscribe, check out the review of the thing when it's actually up in the air, and we'll see how much of that is actually movable. But that's a nice little feature there. So other than that, all we want to do now really, now we've seen the feature set, is let's line it up against its biggest rival, or certainly the biggest player in the game, which is the DJI Zenmuse H3 3D. So we can see it there. Now, to really see how it looks, let's just put a GoPro camera on there. And before I do that, I will just talk about this little thing here, which is the way you attach your GoPro. For the first time ever, there is no longer what used to be one of these. Feiyu-Tech have now got a shot of the idea of holding one of these rings around the lens, which is an interesting point, because basically it means that when you slide your camera on like that, it's a friction fit. There is the possibility that it could slip sideways out of this, because this bar is going to go over the top here. However, I can assure you from what I feel of the friction fit of that alone, and the fact that when you really tie it down, you've also got to bear in mind that the gimbal is designed to keep your camera on the horizon. So there's no real way that it should be slopping left and right sideways anyway. If it glitched out, it would. I still don't think it's going to fall out unless you do something really wacky with it. Maybe something to consider when you're flying a plane, but I think for multi-rotor use especially, no problem there. So yeah. So with the magic of television, I'm now going to suddenly have these two little bolts here in place and on this GoPro, so I can just see what it looks like. And there you go, you can see they are now held in place there, and if I tug on that, it's really not going to slide out of that. I could hold the whole gimbal up, jiggle it around, and I really don't think that's going to be a problem at all. So anyway, side by side with the Zenmous, as you can see, the quote mini is not actually that mini. It's definitely bigger than the Zenmous. Weight wise, I'm not going to do today. I'm going to do that with the full review, but it'll be interesting to see how much they weigh. But you can see the motor size, especially if we just compare them side by side there. You can see that the motors are definitely bigger on the Feiyu-Tech, and I quite like that. I think that's a good thing, because I would like to think that if you're mounting this on a multi-rotor or even an aircraft, which is possible to do, that these are going to be a little bit more kind of beefy. They're going to be able to take that air resistance. In terms of mounting it to an aircraft, actually, if I just take that out of the way, the other thing that's worth noting, if I just grab the manual, is just like some of the older gimbals, there are different ways of mounting it. So you can see you can mount it upside down if you want to, and it gives you a little description of how you go about doing that. You can mount it upside down and upside down if you want to, in mode B, and then you can also do a forward installation, so with the mounting bracket kind of up against a wall face or something. So something like that, you know, if you're flying a really large aircraft, you could actually put that on the nose. Dangerous, but possible. I've had it in this configuration on the cockpit of an Icon A5, in fact, on one of my old gimbals. So it'll be an interesting test to see whether or not that will work. And then likewise, you've got the other option of mounting it on top of something. So that's quite useful if you are flying something, you know, if you're flying a large FPV aircraft like a Skywalker or a Skywalker X8, for example, you could mount it on top of it fairly safely and get some interesting footing there. So it really will depend very much on how this little thing copes with air resistance and whether it glitches out. Obviously on how it holds the horizon as well, because that is something that has been a point of contention for Feiyu-Tech for a long while now, is the horizon drift, where the horizon suddenly slides to one side. So you know, this is all going to be new software, new hardware, so it's going to be interesting to see what you can do with it. So anyway, that's basically the quick look and unboxing. I say quick, not particularly, as always with me. However, hopefully that's been helpful and you can see a bit of a look at what's to come. Please subscribe to my channel, and the review will hopefully be up within probably the next couple of weeks, if not a little bit sooner. So I'll talk a bit more about it and you'll be able to see some footage from it.